Good morning, Senator. What do you think about the surprising showing of Senator McCarthy yesterday?
Well, I think it indicates that there's a good deal of concern about, even within the Democratic Party across the United States, that there's a good deal of concern about the direction in which the country is moving.
Do you see this as a defeat for the president in New Hampshire?
Well, I don't know that I'd add anything to what I said. I think that there is concern within the Democratic Party.
Did he congratulate you on this?
Yes, he did.
And did he indicate that he was reassessing his position?
Well, I don't know whether he did or not. I assume that he was, but as I said, lots of politicians are reassessing their positions.
What did would you feel that he had stabbed you in the back?
No, you talked to him.
Well, we did, and this morning he told us that he was reassessing
Well, all right.
How would you feel,
I believe
Senator?
he is.
And how do you feel
Well,
about
I think it's all right. Anyone can reassess his position. I mean...
Would you welcome his entrance?
Well, I don't. It's a little crowded now, but...
Well, Senator, when you say that you are reassessing your position, do you mean that you're considering challenging the president for the Democratic nomination?
Well, I'm reassessing my position as to whether I will run against President Johnson.
We're going to win. I mean, that's the essential point. It suddenly occurred to me 3 days ago that we had won in New Hampshire. You know, we really had. And we had all the delegates out of Massachusetts. And we had won in Minnesota with minimal organization after the president and the vice president put great organization into Minnesota. And it suddenly occurred to me that something is really happening in America and that Lyndon Johnson isn't going to, is not going to be renominated for president. We are going to defeat an incumbent president of the United States. We're going to change presidents.
We are no longer simply raising an issue for the American people to pass upon. We are no longer conducting a kind of educational program with reference to Vietnam and other national problems. No longer conducting a kind of children's crusade to get them away from demonstrations and protests, to keep them busy until they accept the establishment in middle age. But in fact, I, as your candidate, and you as my supporters, we are seeking the presidency of the United States of America.
If enough people who sense their apathy and that they can't do anything and so forth, it gives you a sense, yes, you can be felt. You can be heard. It was a whisper up in New Hampshire, and it's becoming a roar in Wisconsin.
I've noticed a kind of new escalation on the part of the Johnson administration. In New Hampshire, they used the governor and one senator against me. Here in Wisconsin, partly because they're short governors and senators, I suppose, but who might support them or present their cause, but I understand they're sending in 2 cabinet members. It's a new policy they have. They never let one go out alone. In the earlier days of Russian communism, it was said they never let one travel alone. And it used to be the practice before the religious orders were more or less modernized that there were always 2 nuns together. They've given up on that in the convents now, but evidently the administration has picked this up. They've picked up a lot of things that the church has tried to give up. I was thinking of the Vatican Council, where they began to raise some question about grace office and infallibility. These have all been... all been more or less picked up by the administration. The question of heresy and holy war was questioned at the council, but we have them proposed to us now by the Defense Department and State Department. I'd said that the real point of warning would be when they started to talk Latin in the Pentagon. The fact is that they now are. I'm sorry to say that we had a report about 3 weeks ago publicized that the Defense Department, I think it was the Army, had entered into a contract with Douglas Aircraft to do a general research on the subject of Pax Americana. Well, this is the first warning. I expect their next releases from the Pentagon will be pure Latin, and at that point they won't be any more difficult to understand than some that have been coming out in impure English.
Oh, I think he was operating within the system. I don't see any ideological departure from McCarthy. I think, objectively speaking, anybody who opposed the war in Vietnam was, in a sense, like Roosevelt. Roosevelt had to do what he did in order to preserve the capitalist system in the United States. I think McCarthy, I don't know what his private views are on the subject, but he was acting with perfect consistency like a man who was trying to prevent this country from being ripped to pieces.
We have to respond in Vietnam because they say this is like Munich, and Ho Chi Minh is another Hitler. Well, I don't want to really reply to these assertions because they cannot stand any kind of historical review.
Why? Why Vietnam? Why Vietnam? Why Vietnam?
Munich, 1938. German Chancellor Adolf Hitler arrives for a conference to be held here with British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain. This meeting will long be remembered, for it opens the door to the dreams of dictatorship.
We regard the agreement signed last night and the Anglo-German naval agreement as symbolic of the desire of our two peoples never to go to war with one another again.
Peace in our time.
We know that Vietnam is in no way comparable to Western Europe. We know that Ho Chi Minh, with some 16 million poverty-stricken people and no industry, is in no way comparable to Adolf Hitler.
At 8:30, NBC has projected the victory of Senator McCarthy.
Of course, you always, in this life that we all live, have to take your chances, and it seems everybody speculates these days. Some people speculate in gold, a primary metal, and some people just go around speculating in primaries.
Announcing today my candidacy for the presidency of the United States.
He had his chance, I think. We wanted him to run, but he never did. Now we're supporting Gene till the end.
No way you might change over to Bobby Kennedy?
Unless Gene backs out.
Involvement in Vietnam was no accident. It did not happen overnight. We did not wake up one morning and find ourselves with 500,000 men in that part of the world just by chance. Not a landing in the dark. Not exactly. It was no departure, really, from the kind of diplomacy which we had been following up to that time. Not a surprise, really, but it was written in the past, if we had only seen it coming. It came out of the consensus of the policies which had long been the principal guidelines for American conduct in this world. It originated, I think, as an idea in the mind of John Foster Dulles in the 50s. The idea that somehow we had a great moral mission to control the entire world and to pass moral judgments upon all peoples in all places, of all cultures. And then we began to build this conception into the institutions of this country.
With American sons in the field far away, with America's future under challenge right here at home, with our hopes and the world's hopes for peace and the balance every day, I do not believe that I should devote an hour or a day of my time to any personal partisan causes or to any duties other than the awesome duties of this office, the presidency of your country. Accordingly, I shall not seek and I will not accept the nomination of my party for another term as your president.